development programs from the quantity perspective. And now that we've seen that, let's go ahead and look at what it means to be able to scale our programs from a quality perspective. Okay, because this is the other dimension of the equation. I want to remind us of the poverty tree, right, of this diagram here. I want to remind us of the fact that poverty is a result of all these different root issues that are interacting with each other to create some somewhat uncomfortable circumstances in life. And I use uncomfortable quite loosely. Obviously, we're talking about unnecessary and preventable suffering and death. And we definitely, in order for us to be able to really address the poverty tree, we need to be able to know what the roots are and make sure that we're addressing as many of those roots as possible. And this is where the quality side of scaling comes in. Quality has two different references, like quantity had two different references. The first is to increase the effectiveness of the programs that we're doing. Okay, so if we're working with a farmer and we're helping them with integrated pest management and increased soil fertility and a number of different improved irrigation techniques that he can use himself, then what we're going to see is as we continue this type of interaction and program, then he should start to get better and better results from his farm. So his yields are getting bigger and bigger and better and better. We're getting better and better at teaching the women about their women health issues, and less women are being affected by the same type of infections around their menstruation cycle or whatever. So the programs that we're doing, they're getting better. We're learning, and through the three-way partnerships and through the planning and through all the processes, we're getting better at achieving the result that we wanted to be able to achieve. The second dimension of increasing and scaling the quality is that we're increasing the complexity of our initiatives. Or in other words, we're increasing the variety of issues, of root issues that are being addressed by the development work that's happening. So it's not just agriculture, but agriculture spills into sanitation improvement, which spills into gender equality, which spills into addressing some of the major pandemics in the area, which spills into addressing some of the water challenges. So that we're setting ourselves up so that the programs that we're helping to catalyze and kick off won't just stay within that one route, but are set up to be able to address multiple routes as that program scales and matures. Okay. So, and then just to recap, so we're looking at the quality of the program and then the complexity or the variety that we're addressing. Now, what are a couple tips that you can take in order to set yourself up as good as effectively as possible that the programs that you're part of will be able to scale in this quality way? Well, the first is to recognize that Dan Taylor, in his infinite wisdom, created a multi-dimensional acronym. I don't know how many multi-dimensional acronyms there are out there, but this is one of them. So the first acronym talked about stimulating community awareness, learning, and energy. Well, now within the realm of increasing the quality of our programs, Scale takes on a new name: Self-Help Community Action, Learning, and Experimentation. And what this means is that the community itself is actually becoming a supportive environment for experimentation. Remember, Rima taught Bameng community members essentially one concept: try, monitor, improve. So what we're saying is actually, rather than saying we're here to be able to help to solve this problem, we're saying that we're here to actually support the development of a supportive environment where experimentation is encouraged, and we have the processes around experimentation so that when we start to see a new issue, we can just apply the same principles to that issue and see how we can be able to address it. Just like in the Palin example, they started to say, hey, we were able to, or the the Ming example, we were able to serve all these needs in our community. Well, now let's look at what else we can do. And now we start changing policies with the government, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's because they develop the confidence that they can be able to experiment, try things, fail, that's okay, let's try again. So the second dimension of scale is creating a supportive environment, self-help, community action, learning, and experimentation. The other thing that we're doing that's going to support scaling from a quality perspective is that we're just constantly reinforcing the system. The three-way partnership's getting stronger. We're getting stronger at developing the 4 principles, and it's worth it to note that I pulled this one out of the 4 principles just for emphasis. And we're getting better at going through the iterative cycle of our 7 goals. And as these things are getting stronger and stronger, we become more capable as a community to be able to address different root issues that we have. We have the skills and the processes that are required, so we don't have to wait for the NGO to say, well, now we're gonna help to look at your water problems. No, like let's look at what our problems are. Let's do our own evaluation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's walk ourselves all the way through the process. So as we're strengthening the system, we're setting ourselves up for success in scaling that regard. We're supporting the revolution of rising aspirations. As I've mentioned before, it's so common when in the stories we've talked about so far, when one need is addressed, people not only do they have aspirations as, oh, I want to address more things, but in a really practical sense, in the process of addressing certain issues, you recognize that there's other things that aren't that hard to address. Oh, we never thought that we'd be able to figure out how we could get the teacher to stay in the classroom to teach our kids. That was something that we just thought was hopeless. And then we go through the process a little bit, we realize, wait a second, no, we can totally do that. That's totally within our power. Okay, let's address that issue too. I've got a picture here that I think is pretty fun that demonstrates the revolution of rising aspirations. I hope you just kind of like let it sink in and enjoy it. So the revolution of rising aspirations is a lot of things, right? As our base needs are being met, we can look towards other needs. We're developing confidence that we can address other needs. In the addressing of needs, we're recognizing other needs that can be addressed. So it's all of these things that are swirling together. But really recognizing and supporting the revolution of rising aspirations will organically support the scaling of our programs from a quality perspective, where we're addressing new issues. All of these last 3 things I've talked about, the supportive environment, the stronger system, and the revolution of rising aspirations, what it's doing is it's giving the community the confidence to challenge the status quo. So at every new barrier that we're coming to, we can say, this is the way that it's been for all this time, but it doesn't have to be that way forever. And when people are able to internalize this one concept, you've got something. You've got something going for you. So it will inevitably lead to an organic process of scaling from a quality perspective. Now, please remember, both talking about quantity and talking about quality, none of this happens overnight. And it doesn't happen in a month, it doesn't happen in 6 months, it doesn't even happen in a year. It starts to happen in a year, but this is the type of stuff that it's a process. It takes an organization that might be willing to support this process for an extended period of time, and sometimes it can catch on faster than that. Sometimes it might never catch on at all. Just because you follow the seed scale principles, the 4 principles, 7 goals, you might find yourself in a situation where it actually doesn't work the way that it was supposed to, or would work in ideal conditions. Point of all of that, it's so important that we can do it anyways. This is the best way that we know how. So let's follow these principles and hope that we can achieve these things. Another Daniel Taylor quote: assist a critical mass to grow through internal energies. That is the way of atomic reactions, started by outside stimulus and grown to great force by restructuring internal bonds and mass. So nuclear reaction is able to go in this way. And if you look at internal bonds, let's call that connectivity. Let's call that three-way partnership. Let's call that all the stuff that we know. And when we look at mass, let's call that available local energy, available local wisdom, available local resources, focusing on what's working. So an atomic reaction is just reorganizing the bonds and the mass. And we're able to get stuff like this. And it's the same way with the seed scale model. So that gets us covered in scaling from a quantity perspective. Again, I don't expect you to be an expert after this, but at least you know the lay of the land of the conversation, so you can recognize the questions that should be asked, or at least position yourself for success in the way that you interact with people in a development setting that's going to increase the chances that the programs that you work with are going to be able to scale both in quantity and in quality. So this right here concludes the explanation of the seed scale model. All right, we've talked about what seed scale is. We talked about chaotic governance and everything that goes along with it. We've talked about the 4 principles for decision making, the 7 goals for action, and the 2 dimensions of scaling. They all work together, obviously, they're all interconnected, but by understanding and bringing these principles into the development settings that we find ourselves in, we're going to be able to do our very best to really leverage human energy to result in real behavioral change and real human empowerment.